The second gloom of Hades, Niflheim, the Northmen's despair. Travel from Oinos to Niflheim is through the roots of Yggdrasil, and it is watched over by Hel from her feast hall. It can also be reached by traveling down Yggdrasil, skipping the first gloom of Oinos. Niflheim lacks the disease of the first layer, and is actually quite verdant. It is a land of pine trees, bluffs, and mist. The fog limits vision to 100 feet, and distorts sight and sound, given a -4 to listen checks in 3rd edition, and it makes missile combat nearly impossible. The mist also inflicts constant dampness on everything. Your clothes are always wet, and your metal items will rust unless wrapped tight or maintained constantly. Wolves and trolls are common predators here. The first location we're going to talk about in Niflheim is also called Niflheim, and it is the divine realm of Hel, the Norse god of the dead. She is the cold and emotionless daughter of Loki. Her body is all white and featureless on the left and pitch black on the right, and she frequently rides a 3-legged white horse. Hel's domain is darker and gloomier than the rest of the layer, but otherwise hard to distinguish. The plane descends slowly to a great cavern filled with physical and mental perils. Eventually, it leads to the river Joel, which flows in a circle around the realm, and that is how you know you are in Hel's divine realm. The river rushes so fast that any who swim in it are pushed down to the riverbed and drowned, and those that fly over it are sucked down by the power of the river. The only way across is a bridge guarded by the frost giantess Mothguths. I have no idea if I pronounced that right. I tried to follow the IPA pronunciation on Wikipedia, but it just confused me more. Anyway, once across, a road passes by Garm the Hound, who enjoys eating passerbys, and leads to Hel's palace, perfectly resembling its counterpart in Valhalla, except it's all gray and has no Valkyries. The floor crawls with poisonous snakes, and poison drips from the ceiling. A huge table surrounded by banquet tables is filled with sumptuous feasts that slowly rot and become tainted by the poison dripping from the ceiling. Petitioners sit around staring at the food with hungry eyes. Whenever one gets hungry enough to eat the poisoned food, they vomit themselves to death, but are back the next day sitting at their spot. This hall stretches for hundreds of miles until you get to Hel's throne. The petitioners here died a dishonorable death from old age or disease, and are granted knowledge of their past lives so that they can ruminate on their failings. Conditions. Within Niflheim, Hel's realm, not the whole layer, no one gets anywhere unless Hel allows it. Someone on a mission she doesn't approve of will never arrive at their destination. Necromancy is twice as potent unless it's healing or resurrection. Quote, the goddess, unlike most powers, actually deigns to speak to most of the visitors in her realm. She's usually aloof, and she doesn't really grant any favors. She mocks the supplicant, and if she feels like answering, she usually does it through riddles or rhymes. She's cold and impassive, and just when a body thinks he's gotten through that shell, she comes forth with cold sarcasm. Hel certainly isn't one to raise a Burke's hopes, but since she's usually the last resort for anything anyway, that shouldn't surprise a supplicant. And occasionally, Hel does provide some valuable information, end quote. Next, we have Annwn, also known as the Isles of the Cursed or the 10 Isles, and it is the divine realm of Arawn, the Celtic god of death. It sits in the middle of a vast sea. Its rocky shores deter travelers, and they say no living creature can survive the journey to the islands. Truthfully, this is false, meant to deter adventurers from traveling there and being disappointed, since there's not much of value for them. Arawn doesn't like to see people wasting their short lives on frivolity. There are pines and oaks, plains and barren hillsides, ravines and flat places, all manner of temperate terrain. Each spirit is given their own personal area of Annwn to do with as they please. Some make druidical groves or houses, but most do what they did in life. Nothing. A traveler here always finds a place they recognize, somehow brought here or recreated for their personal solace. The blank grim petitioners are spirits of those who did nothing to distinguish themselves or believed they hadn't done enough. Those who actually accomplish something live closer to the center of Annwn and are allowed to keep more memories of their life, and have more immunity to the waste ennui. Many here turn stag on their liege lords and will betray or kill people just for the pleasure it brings. Conditions on Annwn. Unless they're strong-willed, save versus spell, travelers adopt the characteristics of the lands they're near. Closer to the center, they become more refined and civilized, losing 1 strength and gaining 1 charisma. As they near the outer edges, they become barbaric and decadent, gaining 1 strength and constitution and losing 1 wisdom and intelligence. This takes a day or 2 and wears off in the same amount of time. Quality of products created here are superb, having excellent smiths, weavers, and other types of crafters. Within Annwn, there are 4 key locations. The Fortress of Annwn, a lighthouse and sentry post on the shores of the realm. It is made of human bones topped with a skull. The skull's eyes are aflame and act as the light and the eyes of Arawn, who can use it to see the entire domain. Arawn's Court. In the center of the realm, where some color can be seen, is the gold-etched iron and silver castle where Arawn keeps his court. Cauldron. Cauldron is the chief town in the realm, named after a giant cauldron where new petitioners crawl out of into their afterlife. If a dead person is placed in it for a day and a night, it will revive them. However, they need special permission since Arawn doesn't like bringing the dead back to life. If a living person goes in the cauldron, it instantly kills them irrevocably and the cauldron shatters, reforming after 1 year. Branwallace. A town near Cauldron where most of the unsavory types, including murderers, move to. Gambling halls and fest halls are common, and trade in the smoky tap rooms is more savage here than the rest of the realm. It staves off the influence of the waste, making it somewhat valuable. Next up is Death of Innocence, a town where the people living in it try to redeem themselves, making an effort to develop themselves, improve their lot, and break out of apathy so that they do not give in to how they used to live. It is populated by 5,000 mortals and petitioners, and is constructed of hewn pine from surrounding forests, and the walls bristle with spikes to protect the city. The buildings and gates ooze with blood, like a tree leaking sap, because there are petitioners trapped within the wood. Neither the graze nor the entrapping effect of Hades penetrates Death of Innocence. Hell is not happy about the denizens trying to improve their situation and considers them rebels. The Palace of Loss, the divine realm of Shar, the Faerunian deity of darkness and loss. It is a tower with no windows or doors, only her servants knowing how to enter or exit. She also keeps prisoners here who desire freedom more than anything else, since their suffering is greater. Using the World Tree cosmology from 3rd edition, it was located in the Plane of Shadow instead of Niflheim. Then in 4th edition, it was destroyed during the Spell Plague, and she moved to an Astral Dominion and the Astral Sea, like most deities in 4th edition. 5th edition went back to the Great Wheel cosmology, but it's unclear if Shar returned to Niflheim or not, because 5th edition doesn't like to talk about divine realms for some reason. And Baldur's Gate 3, while had a lot of Shar information, didn't really mention her divine realm. If I had to guess, I imagine she would have moved to the Shadowfell since that's sort of her creation, but once again, we have no idea. Shadowkeep, the domain of Mask, the Faerunian god of thieves. Even though he is a roving deity that doesn't stay in one location, he still likes to keep this realm. Shadowkeep is constantly masked in a fog that turns all but the most determined away, leaving them confused at the point where they first sighted the keep. Dark of Night, the divine realm of Ratri. Ratri, also known as the Queen of Darkness, is an Indian demigoddess of night, thieves, and robbers. In 1st edition, she had no abode and flitted from layer to layer, living off what she can steal from the other greater powers of Hades. In 2nd edition, it is stated that while she does roam the plane and steal, she usually keeps her unlit realm in Niflheim, although she can move the realm around, and travelers would have a hard time finding it. She is one of the few powers on the waste that hasn't given in to evil, so her realm can be a safe place for travelers. Rezuriel, the divine realm of Panzuriel, an old evil sea god with an emphasis on the sea bed. Rezuriel is a reeking, fetid, briny pool that Panzuriel is confined to. And that is Niflheim, the second Gloom of Hades. I should have the Pluton video out by next week. Thank you guys so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and remember to subscribe for more D&D related content.